I will talk about problem statements. Study group is commonly encouraged in learning activities, but not all students agree that it helps to improve academic performance. Since there is limited evidence, we decide to conduct this study among mathematical science university students. This is to address this gap by investigating the impact of study group participations on student performance and identifying whether study group function as an effective learning strategy. Next, we move to research objective. First is to identify the relationship between student participations in study groups and their academic performance (CGPA). Second, to determine whether students' motivation in study groups differs based on gender. And third, to examine the effect of study groups on students' understanding difficult topics.
Objective 1. To identify the relationship between students' participation in study groups and their academic performance. H0. There is no significant relationship between students' participation in study groups and their academic performance. H1. There is a significant positive relationship between students' participation in study groups and their academic performance. Now, we will use a spearman rank test for this objective because the variables were measured at ordinal nominal levels and did not meet the assumption of normality required for Pearson correlation. The results show a very weak positive relationship between joining study groups and CGPA. However, this relationship is not statistically significant because p-value is greater than 0.05. Therefore, we cannot reject the null hypothesis. This means that participating in study groups does not have a significant effect on students' academic performance. Overall, the findings suggest that other factors may play a more important role in determining student CGPA.
Next, by using independent t-test analysis, we want to determine whether students' motivation in study groups differ based on gender. The H0 is there is no significant difference in study group motivation between male and female students. The H1, there is significant difference in study group motivation between male and female students. Here is the result for group statistic between gender and motivated. Next, this is the result for independent sample test. So from these two results, we can conclude that first, based on the group statistic, male students recorded a mean motivation score of 3.93 with a standard deviation of 1.207, while female students recorded a mean score of 3.81 with a standard deviation of 0.911. This indicates that male students have a slightly higher motivation level compared to female students. However, the difference in mean motivation between the two groups is relatively small. Next, Levin's test for equality of variance was conducted to check the assumption of equal variance. The result was not significant, with a significance value of 0.176, which is greater than 0.05. Therefore, the assumption of equal variance is met, and the result from the equal variance assumed row were used. The independent sample t-test showed that the p-value is greater than 0.05, indicating that there is no statistically significant difference in motivation between male and female students. In conclusion, although male students show slightly higher motivation, the difference is not statistically significant. Therefore, gender does not significantly influence students' motivation in study groups.
Next, the third objective, we are still using the independent t-test analysis to examine the effect of study group on students' understanding difficult topic. The rationale is that study group participation has no significant effect on students' understanding difficult topics, while the H1 is that study group participation has a significant effect on students' understanding difficult topics. As shown on the right side is the group statistics between study group participation and understanding difficult topics. And as shown on the left side is the independent sample test. From those two tables, we can conclude that based on the group statistics, students who study in groups reported a slightly lower mean understanding compared to students who studied alone. However, the difference between the two groups is small. The leaving test for equal variance was not significant, indicating the equal variance assumption was met. Therefore, the results under the equal variance assumed rule were used. The independent sample t-test was not statistically significant difference in understanding difficult topics between students who study in groups and those who study alone. Since the p-value is greater than 0.05, the difference is not statistically significant.
After we analyzed all the three objectives using appropriate statistical method, we found that all of our result is not significant. There is insufficient evidence to support a strong relationship between study group participation and academic performance. Also, our findings suggest that gender does not significantly influence students' motivation in group learning. And lastly, studying in groups does not necessarily lead to better understanding compared to study alone. To conclude, the results indicate that although study group may provide learning support, their effects on academic performance, motivation, and understanding were not statistically significant in this study. Maybe for better understanding in the effectiveness of study groups in improving student academic, future studies may need a larger sample size.